All right, y'all, welcome back to Combat Arms channel. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about my time in the subterranean combat corps. I also refer to it as the tunnel rat school because that's kind of like the modern day equivalent of what it was back in the 60s and 70s. So when I'm talking about subterranean combat corps, this was something that I did in the Army in 2018. Now, I guess the course wasn't really that long. I'd say it was like a little bit under 2 weeks. Nothing too crazy. Now, the reason why we were even doing this subterranean combat course is because the U.S. Army at the time was really invested in sort of developing their subterranean combat, and I guess their subterranean warfare doctrine. So the U.S. Army was trying to sort of specialize certain brigades around the U.S. to be, specialty subterranean combat units. Now, the reason, I'm not exactly sure why they were really getting huge into subterranean combat. I think this was just something that came up because, we have jungle warfare specialists, we have desert specialists, we have mountain specialists, we have a bunch of stuff like that, but not so much subterranean combat, and that was like a big topic at the time. So that's what the U.S. Army was trying to do. They were sending out these mobile training teams to go and train these units and see how these units actually picked up on these subterranean combat tactics, if you will. Now, I'll say subterranean warfare is very different from anything else because when I'm talking about subterranean warfare, I mean like tunnels or underground facilities. If you've seen the video that I did about Finland's underground city, it's kind of like that. So basically anything that's under the surface. Now, the reason why subterranean combat is so different is because one, it could be anywhere. As long as you can find an underground facility, you can find subterranean warfare anywhere you go. So it requires you to change up your tactics and even your equipment a lot. So of course, normal radios don't really work too well underground. You need specialized equipment just to make sure you actually maintain communications. When you're underground, you need to worry about, air quality, oxygen levels. There's a higher risk of, CBRN threats, so chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, especially just talking about underground facilities. There's generally going to be like some testing going on or some equipment, maybe some tanks or whatever. The facilities in general are going to have a little bit higher risk of being a CBRN threat. And you need to change your tactics up a lot because if you don't have the communication set up, and even if you do have the advanced radios, you need to make sure that you almost have a chain of personnel throughout the facility so you can continue to communicate to the people who are actually outside the facility. And there's other things you need to worry about, like it's something called the umbilicals, which is basically like the life support system. You need to worry about those as well, especially if you're going into that, because that's an easy target. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So again, I did this in 2018. I did it in Fort Hood. We took like a bus or something over there. Wasn't anything crazy, but we checked in. We met the staff, which they're from the asymmetric warfare group, which is basically this group that goes around the Army and teaches them basically asymmetric warfare, like tactics you wouldn't normally get in your normal basic training or your normal infantry training. And these guys are pretty specialized, like we're talking former Delta guys, Green Berets, Rangers, so they know a whole lot about what they're doing, and they go to advanced training to specialize in these things specifically. So it was really awesome. As far as like the whole training progression, of course, we went in there and they explained what the course is about, why the Army has a big focus on subterranean combat, and they even gave some historical context. They gave some example of, I think, like the Germans in World War II attacking some forts in Belgium or something like that. I might need to, I'll put the name of the operation right here so you guys can check that out. It was really fascinating. I think like the Germans took gliders and then they attacked this underground facility, and I think they ended up doing it really effectively. So that was like the historical, I guess, case study, if you will, that we started off with to get us into the mindset of what subterranean combat could look like. So it was really cool getting that historical context. And then they started talking about, the principles of subterranean combat and how they're different. Because again, you need to change up your tactics, you need to change up your equipment, and there's a higher risk of a bunch of other things as far as, air quality, CBRN threats. It's a lot harder to work like a medevac, especially if you need to map out the underground facility, because underground facilities can get very, very complicated. It's almost like a spider web. If you don't have a map, then it's going to be very tricky, especially just coordinating like the assault itself. You need way more people than you think when you're going to these facilities, especially if you don't know how big they are. You're going to need a lot of people to do it, and it takes a lot of coordination. And with that, it takes a lot of communication. So it's much more monotonous, but you sort of get in a flow once you start doing it. So we started everything off. We started doing like a room clearing training and close quarter battle training because these underground facilities, it's pretty much all close quarter battle stuff. I mean, you do have these long tunnels, these long hallways, but a lot of times the lighting really isn't that good. If the lights turn off, you're not going to be able to see very far. And once you get deeper and deeper, if the lights aren't actually working or there's not that many lights, it's going to be pretty hard to actually see anything. So we're doing CQB. We're focused on our light manipulation because we all had flashlights, and we're working on clearing out this facility or these facilities with flashlights, because that's what we're going to actually need to do in the tunnels themselves. It was really awesome. We spent a few days just doing the room clearing, and again, I have a CQB background, so that was very easy for me. And it was really cool because the Delta guys, the Green Berets, the Rangers, our instructors were teaching everything that I learned exactly. So it was all spot on. It was very familiar to me, so that was really helpful. They taught a little bit extra stuff as far as manipulating your weapon, how to use your lights a little bit more. We also used like riot shields, which it's basically like a substitute for ballistic shields, because ballistic shields are very useful when you're talking about long tunnels, as you can well imagine. Even for hallways, ballistic shields are very useful. So we're working with implementing ballistic shields, implementing flashlights, and just clearing out small confined spaces. So it was really good training. Again, we did that for a few days. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I don't remember, but I think we had simunition. I'm not exactly too sure. I documented this training pretty well, so I will post up pictures periodically if I have some good pictures. And then I also have a video in and of itself that I'll actually put down in the description for you guys to check out. It's basically me doing like all these assaults and all this CQB stuff in the underground facility itself. So once we did all the CQB stuff, once we learned like how to use the radios and all that good stuff, we moved into the underground facility. So Fort Hood has this massive underground facility. It's crazy. It's huge. You can get long hallways, wide hallways. You can get light. You can get no light. You can get like really small rooms or really big rooms. So it was just crazy, and it was insane. Even from a CQB standpoint, that thing was a monster to clear out, because again, you have a lot of people just flowing through. It's kind of like if you imagine like an anthill, and if you pour water into that like anthill and it just goes through all the cracks, that's basically what we were, except it was just a bunch of soldiers just weaving in and out of all these tunnels and whatnot. So it did take a lot to actually bring everybody in and make sure you're actually doing it monotonously. Now, something they actually taught us to do, which I did in the CQB school and when I was on the CQB team, is to mark things. Because if you're not marking things, then it gets very, very complicated. But that was the thing that people struggled with a lot, is just understanding, like, stop getting tunnel vision and mark off everything that you clear out, so you're not having to go back and people aren't coming behind you and getting freaked out because they don't know if something is clear or not. So that was the biggest issue we had, is just communicating and marking where we actually were. We got a little bit better, but we used green chem lights to mark off, cleared rooms. We also used blue chem lights to make like a rolling casualty collection point. And what I mean by that is, you have a main casualty collection point outside the facility, of course, because it's easier to maintain, easier to transport people. But the deeper and deeper you get into the underground facility, you need to set up more casualty collection points so you can have those medical personnel transfer these people to the casualty collection point, so you can actually get them out of the facility and get them to the medevac. So we marked those off with blue chem lights. The medics were having a whole lot of fun trying to treat people under night vision, or trying to treat them with low lights, or even flashlights. So that was cool to see as well. It was definitely taking a toll on people mentally, because they weren't able to see anything. A lot of times we had our gas mask on, and yeah, it just gets very hot. There's no airflow when you're in those facilities. But it was a lot of fun. It's good to have challenging training like that. Now, I would say I was definitely leading it a lot better than other people just because I had that CQB background. I knew if you have like a long tunnel system, it's basically like a long hallway, and if you have all these rooms on the side, there's certain ways to take it so you're not losing security. So I was taking the lead on that. A lot of people were remembering the CQB training that we did a few days prior, so that was good. It wasn't necessarily like the cleanest, but as long as they had the fundamentals down, it was good. So we got the room clearing down pretty well. And then we also got the marking down really well, so we weren't having to go and re-clear out any areas. And people had a good warm and fuzzy, so they were able to come up to the main assault force knowing that everything was actually cleared out because we marked it with the chem lights. But of course, the instructors were not going to make this easy. So, a lot of times they'd be like, gas, gas, gas. And whenever you hear that, then that means you have to put on your gas mask, and you basically have to stop whatever you're doing. You need to pull your security, but at the same time, you need to get your gas mask on really quickly. So you have your helmet on and everything. You have to take that off. If you have a headset, you have to take that off as well, rip it off really quick, because you're supposed to get your gas mask on in 9 seconds. So you're just ripping all this off. You're stopping everything you're doing. You're putting your gas mask on. A lot of people didn't do it in the allotted time. So, if you don't get your mask on quick enough, then now you're a casualty. And that was pretty brutal because people just weren't comfortable with their gas mask. And again, with these underground facilities, you need to be comfortable with that whole CBRN environment. And, now you have this gas mask on, you have less peripheral vision. It's harder to communicate to people if you have a radio. Have fun trying to... Some people were lucky to have the voice emitters, which sound like almost like a stormtrooper or a clone trooper. So some people were lucky enough to have that, but if you didn't, like I didn't, you just have to yell loud, which I'm totally fine with. But some people are not fine with yelling loud, and they tend to talk too fast, so you can't even communicate to the person right next to you. You're just saying, what? You're saying what a lot because you can't understand what they're saying because they're not, speaking concisely. So that was kind of an issue. But it gets very hot. You get to, you sweat a lot. You have your helmet over your gas mask, which a lot of people aren't used to. Now you have night vision with your gas mask, and people aren't, used to adjusting that. So they're, they can actually utilize their sights if they really need to. A lot of people just didn't consider this stuff. So there was like night vision that was like way out here, or people just like folded the night vision down so it was like here and they couldn't actually see through it. You saw some crazy stuff whenever people start doing stuff that they're not used to. But it was really awesome training, really challenging stuff, and we got in a good flow. Again, subterranean warfare is a completely different beast, and if you guys get the chance to go to any specialized training for it, I would definitely recommend it. If you can master subterranean warfare, then any urban environment, any CQB environment, it's going to be much easier because you don't have to worry so much about all these long hallways. You don't have to worry so much about the CBRN threat or the low air threat or the communication. You get very good at mastering those fundamentals, so to speak. But yeah, we did a few training exercises. We did like one big final exercise where we had like an opposing force and we had simunition, so we'd go and clear that out, and I was good. I think actually we had UTM rounds, which is a little bit different from simunition. I'll post a picture of a UTM round here. So they're a little bit different, but it was a lot of fun doing that. I ended up surviving, because again, I'm comfortable with the CQB environment. I know how to work those angles, so to speak. But yeah, it was cool. We didn't take too many casualties on the final exercise, which was good. But again, things can go very, very south if you get people who are injured and you're not marking things off. So again, with subterranean warfare, you just need to be a master of the basics. And you tend to bring in a little bit more of those fundamentals when you're talking about subterranean combats. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. That's pretty much it. I don't have too much to talk about for the whole subterranean warfare school. If you guys have actually had any specialized underground facility training or subterranean training, let me know how that was. Let me know if you had similar experiences as I had, or just even training with like a CBRN environment. It's a completely different beast, and it's a lot of fun to see how people react when all of a sudden they have to have a gas mask on and now they need to communicate through a gas mask. But yeah, I had a blast during that course, I gotta say. Again, it wasn't crazy long, but everyone who went there had a good understanding of infantry tactics and general room clearing. So I think we did pretty well. But yeah, I'll post pictures periodically throughout the video, so you guys can understand a little bit more and just picture it a little bit better. And I'll also do the same for some clips. But yeah, it was fun talking about this. It was a really fun school. I'm glad I was able to go to it. Again, if you guys have any sort of similar experiences, feel free to throw that down in the comments section. If there's anything else you'd like to know about the tunnel rat school or the tunnel rat course, I guess, let me know. Put it down in the comments section. I'm totally willing to answer those. And again, feel free to check out the video that I actually did, for the training itself. Some pretty cool footage. Again, a lot of people losing their minds because they're not used to all that stressful stuff. But yeah, it's all good. That's sort of the point of doing training like that. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. If you did enjoy it, feel free to hit the thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. I do appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. That is it for this video. So I will see y'all in the next one.